Hey, welcome back to Next Third, Best Third. I'm David Fenwick, your founder and your host. And as we start off season 2, I'm real excited because I've got my friend Eddie Tait here. Eddie, so good to have you.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
And what we're going to do is we're going to explore what manhood really looks like. Everyone talks about masculinity, but I really want us to talk about manhood.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a heavier, that's deeper.
It is.
There's more layers to that. So,
And the word masculinity has been so tarnished.
oh, I know.
Manhood, you can't escape. What are you talking about?
That's right.
It's like, this is the way God's designed us to be.
Yeah, that's right.
Men. So.
Absolutely, yeah. When like you say, masculinity's been thrown out, and you got people saying there's toxic masculinity. There's all this kind. But anyway, enough of that.
Yeah.
So, man, Eddie, you do so much with men. You do so much. Period. We're going to get into that probably on another episode. But man, you do so much with men. Why don't you dig in a little bit and talk about like some of the big challenges, the common challenges, right? Yeah, and then some of the misgivings and the where men are wrestling right now.
Yeah, definitely. It's amazing, if you don't mind. I mean, part of the origin of my heart going towards men was really the move out here from Redding. I'd always been involved in youth, young adults, raising up a younger generation. I was active in every church I've ever been a part of. To me, once you got saved, that you're in full-time ministry. So I was always active in church. But right before we moved out here, I literally had a vision where God showed me newspapers opening up all over the world. And the headline said, "Fatherlessness broken off of a city. Austin, the first city of fathers." And something stirred in me. And it just put me in this, I'm called to men. And I got here and immediately just started gathering men. So I gather men socially. I gather men personally. To me, that's what I'm called to do, is gather men and gather the unlikely. Like, I've had so many people in these times go, how do you get all these different people here? It's like, you invite them. Like, it's not that hard.
No.
Men are craving connection. Men are hard at asking for connection. Yes. So if someone asks, men will respond.
That's right.
So I just got started with going after community, building small communities of men, and really just got lit on fire for this mandate almost to see men step into the fullness of how they've been created to be.
I'm amazed as we're talking how much we have in common. So the last thing I wanted to do was be in men's ministry, right? I mean, there's no way. I didn't want to go to these groups saying, I'm struggling with porn, I got a drinking problem, and all this kind of stuff, and we all just vomit over each other and then go back home. I was like, I don't want anything to do with that. But like you, once I started to realize that men were really craving connection.
Yes.
And I did it outside the church. That's where I started. I started in my business, and I traveled a lot for business. And I would just make connections, go up to guys, and instead of saying, hey, what do you do for a living? I'd just go deep right away. And
throws them off, but they respond.
They respond almost 100%. So we have so much in common with that. But so you meet men and...
I mean, most of my sphere of influence is in the church, just because when we moved here, that was the job I took.
Yeah, you were a pastor.
I became a pastor, so that was my sphere of influence. Yeah. But, I mean, I don't care where I meet a guy. A man is a man, right? Like, I don't care what their faith background is. I don't care what their experience in life is. I don't care what their struggles are or their successes. You're a man. Mm-hmm. One of the challenges I think we have, and especially it's funny that you mentioned men's ministry. So many men's ministries are based around what issues are you dealing with that we need to try to get out of you or fix.
Right.
It's like, why don't we just start talking about who you are, not who you shouldn't be anymore?
I love that.
Because every man has already been told. They get told every time they look in the mirror. They get told every time they watch TV. They get told when they speak to their wife, look in their kids' eyes, talk to their buddies, they go to work. They're always being told, this is where you're not.
That's right.
So we need to create a culture where men are like, this is who you are. Because that gets me wanting to lean in. Everything else I said makes me want to lean away.
That's right.
That's why you see so many separations in families and fathers not being really there for their kids, because if there's any layer of disappointment, it feels like this affirmation of everything else they're hearing. So they just start to lean away from life in general, and they begin to shut down.
There's so many things, and is they become their lies that we believe about ourselves.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
There's shame, there's failure.
Right.
I'm a disappointment. Whatever it may be.
Yep.
And I find it the exact same thing, Eddie, is when I talk to guys and I just start building them up.
Right.
I mean, a simple thing of saying, man, you have such a power about you. There's such a presence about you. You draw people in. And they're like, really? But it resonates, and they're like,
Right.
going, I actually do, but no one's told me that.
Right. Because we all have truth in us.
Right.
When somebody speaks that truth, it begins to surface. And when that surfaces, people can't help but get excited and want more of it.
Right.
And that's all we need to do. We just need to speak the truth of who somebody is. And it can be a simple feeling. I could know nothing about you and be like, man, you just seem like you've got the greatest spirit on you. Just the personality to be able to draw people in and really invite people to be known. Right. Thank you for that. You say that to some guy, he's going to be stopped in his tracks thinking, right. That's not what I'm told every day.
No, not at all.
Thank you for recognizing that. I had forgotten that about myself. That's a big thing I find, is when you start speaking truth to men, they start to remember things about who they really are that they've learned to forget.
Yeah.
They've learned to forget it.
I told my story on when I was 11 years old. When I was 11 years old, I had these dreams, and I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. I wanted to have my own television talk show.
Wow.
And I wanted to be an actor.
At 11, I love it.
At 11. Those are the three things I really wanted to do. And then I was sexually abused by a priest several times.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, my dreams became, I just lost them, right?
Yeah.
So you go into survival mode, you're just spinning with your identity issues and everything. Right. And yet those things carried over all through my life, and here I am, I've got my own talk show. I'm in acting class.
Come on.
So the things in my life are coming, but those are, I challenge guys all the time. I says, what did you dream about?
Right.
When you were young, what did you dream about?
Yeah, they weren't childish.
No.
They were seeds.
Yeah. Yeah, our friend Seth Dahl was on one day, and he was talking about when a boy dreams, or boy or girl, and they say, I want to be a fireman, right? They have no idea what that really means.
Right.
But what that means is, I want to save people. I want to be courageous,
Right.
right? Or they say, I want to be president. I want to lead people, right? Or I want to be a doctor. They're not talking, they have no idea the school. Yeah, I want to help and serve, right? It reveals who they are.
Yes, it is. It's all identity based.
Yeah.
So, I mean, pretty much any conversation you go to at some point can go back to the point of identity.
Yeah.
And that's really manhood. What are you? What is a man? How does a man actually walk out life? It's all based on his identity.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you want to lean into, I mean, you and I are both faith-based, you lean into, this is what God says, this is what the scripture says, this is truth. Well, if you don't believe in that, that doesn't change it not being true.
Right.
So I can still speak the truth over who you are. You don't have to connect it to the source. You just have to connect it to yourself.
Oh, absolutely. I know you and I, we're in everybody's lives,
Right, right.
And so many of our subscribers and followers are not people who share our faith.
Right.
But that's not what this is about.
Not at all.
They need to hear, hey, you're seen.
Yes.
You're heard. You're valued. That's the whole search for significance.
You have purpose and you have influence.
That's right. And the other thing is, no matter where you find yourself right now, it's not too late.
Right. That's so good. That is so good.
Yeah.
I'm at 54. I know what you mean.
Yeah. We're going to do another episode. I want to dig into that with you, about reinventing yourself in your 50s. That's such a powerful thing.
Yeah,
so
it's good.
So we're talking about identity and everything, but so make it a very practical, as far as, where do men really, we say identity, but where do they get bogged down? Where does it really beat them up?
Wow. And I think a lot of that deals with the societal expectations. So if you allow society to dictate your identity, you're always going to be at the mercy of whoever's speaking the loudest. And sometimes it may be the right voice, often it's not. But you're never going to be foundationally secure in anything because it's a constantly moving dynamic. Society is always changing.
Yeah.
So when men try to find out who they are, who am I as a man, based on what does society tell me a man is, they're going to be confused, and it's going to change on them so often that they're not going to be able to keep up with it, which means they're either going to constantly be changing themselves or they're going to shut down and say, I'm just not going to try anymore because I can't ever live up to what everybody expects So I'm going to sit back in the corner and not rock the boat and do what I am supposed to do. And then you find men just existing, but not living.
Wow.
Not actually doing what they're called to do. And it's called to lead. Every man is built to lead. Like, it doesn't matter if you feel like you're a leader or, I've got an introverted personality. Great, you're still called to lead. Doesn't mean that you lead loudly. It means you lead in peace. Mm-hmm. You lead in a way that doesn't actually externally show, but you're still a leader. You're called to be that leader.
Yeah, and a leader, as we understand it, is supposed to be someone who's a servant, right?
Yeah.
They're vulnerable. They're not lording it over. You know,
Right.
that's the misnomer, right? This whole idea that a man's supposed to lead it. You know, that's so bad.
Well, and it's because the leaders that are affirmed in our culture and our society are the fighters, the conquerors, the ones that are leading big and loud. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not wired to be big and loud, I'm never going to measure up, so I'm not going to try anymore.
Wow.
And it's honestly, it's like, as a parent, almost any parent could say, as you're raising your kids, one thing you don't ever want to see your kids do is just give up because they don't think they can do it. It's like, no, you encourage them. You should. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, once we kind of grow up, we grow out of this idea that we should stop continuing to try. We should stop believing in ourselves. We need to continue to have that drive to go, you know what? I know I'm called to something.
Yeah.
And until I feel this fullness inside of me, like I am doing everything I've been designed to do. Doesn't matter your beliefs. What am I designed to do? You watch people that are not faith-based, that are really walking in what they're called to do. They are some of the most attractive, influential people that you can meet. I mean, some of my best friends and some of the people that I admire and listen to in a lot of what they say, not necessarily for, is it the way I want to live my life, but it's like, why are you saying that? Because you're living yours.
That's right.
And it's because they know who they are. They're walking out what they're called to do. And they haven't allowed anything to stop them from doing that. And it comes at a cost.
Yeah, it does come at a cost. Jump into that a little bit. I was going to say something, but what's the cost?
The cost is disappointing people. Mm-hmm. It's being someone that you believe in more than what others believe in you. It's allowing yourself to take risks and fail.
Yeah.
Because failure should never be looked at as the end result. Because failure is only bad if it's when you stop.
Right.
If you stop after failure, it's a bad thing.
Right.
If failure has created the opportunity for you to learn, to grow, and to step forward into what the next potential outcome could be, then it's good. Failure is always good.
Right.
Because if you're not failing, you're probably not trying.
That's right.
And so, I think that's a big thing with men in general, but even, Mike, I have 5 girls, but in 5 girls, I've wanted to model to them, this is what a man in your life should look like, and this is how you as a woman should expect a man to live.
That's so good. Yeah.
And I try to model it, and I've made lots of mistakes. And in those mistakes, they and I both learned. Now, if I'd have made a mistake and said, ooh, I'm just not going to do that anymore, I'm going to stop trying in this area, they wouldn't have a father. They'd have a male that shows up and provides. Maybe.
That's so powerful, Eddie. And by the way, Eddie and I have a lot in common. I have 5 daughters too, so and a son.
You have a son. I have a son that's been married in now.
Okay.
I don't call him a son-in-law. He's my
your
son.
Okay, there you go then. But it's true. I look back, and I'm a bit older than you, but that doesn't really matter because we have this record behind us, right? Yeah. And we look back, and there's things I'm so disappointed, right, and ashamed.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
What an idiot I was, this kind of a thing. But one thing I can tell you, Eddie, and this I've shared this with a lot of guys, is my girls, for the most part, and a couple of them in particular, have said to me over this last year, saying, I like this version of you, Dad, better than any other.
Wow.
And it's because I keep taking risks.
Yes.
I keep dreaming. I keep stepping out, right? They're looking, saying, if I would have settled, if I would have said I failed, they would have said, well, this is, like you say, this is the dad we got. We love him, but this is who he is.
Yep.
Now they're like going, are you kidding me? You're doing this, and it's so encouraging. That's what I want for other guys.
Yeah. One of the most humbling moments I think I've had as a father was not this Father's Day, but the previous one. You and I had shared a little before, all the weird stuff that happened to me in a season, losing a house, losing a job. I mean, just all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And that Father's Day, my girls said, Dad, we just want to thank you for how you've led this family. And I mean, they're using words that I'm like, did Mom help you script this? Like, how? But they're like, the way that you led this family and the way that you stayed intentional with Mom and with us.
Yeah.
And I broke. You know, I'm just like, that is the legacy I want. I want them to see me as someone that I will never stop pursuing who I've been called to be for myself and for everybody I contact.
That's right. Because that's what that legacy, I love that, right? Yeah. Is legacy is not the money you leave behind, not the inheritance. Right. It's those lessons. It's the impact on lives. And it starts with our kids. Yes. But it goes so much further than that.
So much further.
You know, one of the things I was going to mention earlier was where men fall into that complacency. It's because comparison has actually handicapped them.
It completely, because you're not meant to live anybody else's life.
Right.
And once you actually look at their life as what you want, you've given up a portion of who you were supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it's not it's like you've given away the potential in you because you decided you wanted what somebody else had. And you'll never have a fuller life than being who you were supposed to be. You may have less money and be 10 times more happy.
Yes.
You may have less influence and be 10 times more happy. You can have more joy and fulfillment in your life by being who you were supposed to be, not who you think you want to be by looking around.
Yeah.
And you just that measuring stick will never work when you look at somebody else's life.
That's so good. Do you know David Dorman?
Yes.
David, great guy. David was on
Jackie
here.
did.
Yeah, Jackie was been here too. David came up with something that I really loved, and he compared a man's life to a lot or a plot of land. Mm-hmm. So you have a plot of land, and I have a plot of land. Mine might be a small plot in the city. You might have 30 acres in the country. But the thing that he said is we need to learn what's the highest and best use of the land that we've been given.
Good analogy.
Isn't it good?
That is a good analogy.
Because all of a sudden, I'm not comparing your 30 acres to my lot in the city.
Right.
I'm saying, I've got this. What's the highest and best use for this? And it's not going to look anything like yours.
That is really good.
Yeah.
That is.
I knew you'd like that one.
Yeah, I like that a lot. David's great. They're amazing. They're
they are.
Great in Revelation, and they're doing some good things.
One of the things too, you brought up that your daughter said thank you for the way you've led, and also that you've been present through the whole thing and engaged with them. Yeah. There's statistics that are out there. I'm sure you're familiar with that. We lead the world in fatherless homes.
Oh yes.
Yeah. By far, it's not even close. I think it's like second place is 9%, and we're at like 24%.
More than that.
And
so with fatherlessness, if you're talking about, there's two types of fatherlessness. One's that there's no father present, or one that there's a father there but he's not present.
So that's where I was going to go. Yeah. So there's fatherless, which is without the father present.
Without the father.
But absentee fathers, that's the one that he's in the house but he's checked out.
Right.
He's not engaged.
Yeah.
And that you can't even put a number on. But in the engagement that I've had, I'm sure with you, talking with men, that is a epidemic in this country.
Very much so. Yeah, it's and I think it begins a lot of times with male to male relationships.
Yeah.
How do I actually interact with other men? If I struggle with even acting with another man, how am I going to interact with my wife and my kids, my boss, my employees, whatever? I have to get those relationships down, and just being able to communicate.
Yeah.
Clear communication. I think one of the things that we face, and this is one of the reasons men are so disconnected, especially in the home, is men don't really like emotions. Mm-hmm. You can't help them. You don't get to choose if you have them or not. It's what you do with them that matters.
That's right.
When I hear people go, well, I'm going to shut that down. I'm not going to have that emotion. It's not possible. But what you're doing is you're saying, I'm not going to deal with that. And now that means I'm not going to know how to communicate when that emotion comes up inside of me. I'm shutting down my ability to function when that emotion is present. So if you can't stop it from happening, but you're deciding not to function while it's happening, you're cutting off an aspect of your life for every emotion you decide you don't want to deal with.
That's right. And then that emotion that you think you're ruling over because you've got it under control.
Yeah, there's no such thing as controlling emotion.
It actually is ruling over you.
100%.
You know, in my acting class, one of the things, and I've shared this before, but I found this so interesting, is early on in doing our exercises and everything, I would never express anger.
Oh, wow.
Right. And our teacher, they'd call me on this saying, David, you should have been angry in that moment. And I said, I didn't care. And they're like, no, you do care. Why aren't you doing that? And so finally, after months into this, I started to make a decision that I'm going to excavate anger. And so what I found out was, since I was abused at 11, I had suppressed anger because I didn't want to be mad at my mom and dad because this guy was allowed access to me, even though that was a question. And he was part of the Catholic Church, and that was this huge entity that, I mean, it was hard to, how do you get mad, right? And so I just suppressed it, and I suppressed it all for years and years and years. I would show a little bit of anger, but for the most part, Eddie, it ruled over me. Right. And there was times in my life that I should have expressed real anger, but I was so afraid that it would be uncontrollable, that it would be like rage.
Fear becomes control.
Right. And so one day in class, we're doing this exercise, and it came out. And I'm talking about another guy. We're face to face, almost to blows. I mean, we're men of faith, and I'm dropping the F-bomb. I'm going after it. I mean, this was like not me at all.
Yeah,
something came out.
Years of suppressed.
I mean, it was scary. When we were done, everyone was clapping. And we don't do that in our classes. You know, I mean, they were like, it was amazing. But so anyways, on the way home that night, and it's like 11 o'clock, I'm on I-35 driving home. All of a sudden it hit me. I said, man, I like myself.
Wow. That's so good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that. It's funny you said something, and my thought on it is, we can't control anger. What we can control is our actions while we're angry.
Yes.
But what happens is that you start to disarm the ability to have anger be a healthy thing in your life when you try to actually control the way you work from it. And it's like, if you just acknowledge the emotion and then you work on, how am I supposed to healthily work from this emotion? Because when you look at all the different emotions, you got fear, you got insecurity, fear, shame, guilt, all these things. It's like, well, how could that be healthy? There's a lot. Guilt and shame, healthy guilt and shame lead to conviction.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with those feelings as long as you actually allow them to move you somewhere.
Yeah.
So for years, I didn't like anger either, because I've been doing martial arts my whole life. I'm a dangerous person if I ever needed to be. So I've learned my whole life, control it. So I have a huge threshold for getting angry. It just doesn't happen hardly ever. And if I do, I just tell people, run, just as far away. Yeah. But I used to deal with any type of conflict, because my wife and I have been married 25 years now. We had our first actual fight 3 years ago. And it was devastating to me, because it was the first time we'd either raised our voice to each other, ever.
Yeah.
Part of the problem is that anytime we had conflict, or anytime I was, angry at the girls for what they were doing, anything, I would shut down and say, just give me some time. I'd go in a room, I'd deal with my junk, then I'd talk to God about it, and I'd be like, is any of this really more important than being connected to my kids or my wife? No. So I'd come out 100% of the time. I never came out the same as I went in. 100% of the time I came out repentant. Even if I was right, I'm like, you and I are more important than the outcome of this. Yeah. So always good. I found out probably 5 years ago, my kids hated that. And I thought, wait a minute. I was protecting you from my process and me being, and they're like, yeah, but we never knew what you were dealing with, and we never knew what was going to happen. I said, were you afraid I was going to come out and for the first time, like, we're never afraid of you. We just didn't know what was going on. Because I learned this method, there's an emotional thing that my wife and I have gone through this whole training on, and I just started processing my emotions in the moment. Hey, I'm feeling this. This is what's going on. And my kids didn't love it, but afterwards they're like, that was way better than what you, and I'm thinking, wait a minute. I'm expressing my anger right now. That feels more threatening or more confrontational. They're like, no, it was better than you going away and us having to wait. I'm thinking, that's a life lesson.
I'm just blown away at our similarities. So my wife and I never had a fight, right? That's because she suppressed things and I avoided things, right? So I used to brag saying, oh, we never had a fight, until she left, Yeah. And when she left, I was just like,
where did that come from?
What?
Yeah.
And I was caught off guard. One of my daughters sat with me and she said, Dad, you never taught us how to have conflict.
Wow.
So she's going through some therapy and everything. She said, and she expressed it. She says, Mom just buried things. You avoided things. And we never learned how to have healthy conflict. One of my guests, I don't know if you know Tyson Morlett. Tyson's, he's
name sounds familiar.
Yeah, I bet you know him. But anyway, he's an amazing guy. He was in ministry for years and he stepped out, and he and his wife have written books and they do marriage conferences.
Yeah.
But he teaches about how to conflict in a healthy way. And I wish I would have known him 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
But he has this thing about saying that you conflict towards something.
That is perfect.
Right. So here we are. You and I are having a conflict.
Yep.
We're not in agreeing anything. I mean, we're like going, but this is where we want to go.
Right.
So we're conflicting towards something, not against one another.
Yeah.
And if you do that in your marriage and you model that, I mean, all of a sudden you're giving your kids all these tools.
Yep. And our friend Danny Silk made a statement. I've known Danny for years. I've heard him probably say the statement a dozen times. And that one time he said it, it spoke to me because I was having a situation with one of my daughters. She was wanting to live something that it was wrong. Like, she was wrong, I was right. There's no debate on that. We both know that's true.
Yeah.
But he made a statement once. He said, I'd rather be connected than right.
Say that again?
I'd rather be connected than right.
Wow.
And it spoke to me, and I thought, I can pursue being right and trying to get her to understand she's wrong, or I can let her know I'm connected to her, regardless of that. And it dealt with a boy in another state that she was like, I'm going to move it. I'm going to go be with him. And I'm like, and it just, this is why that's wrong. And here's my list of perfect reasons why that's wrong.
Right.
And I ended up telling her, you know what? I want you to know that I love you and I'm here for you, regardless on if I think you're right or wrong.
Yeah.
So I'll buy us both plane tickets and I'll go out there so I can at least meet the young man. Hardest decision probably I made in a long time. In that process, she ended up, the day before, she goes, Dad, you're right. I shouldn't be with this guy. But I feel like I still need to go there and tell him face to face. So we get on a plane and I told her, I said, I want you to understand something. Once you see him and you try to tell him, it's not going to work because the emotions will come. I said, it's okay. I don't want you to feel like you have to fake anything. If you tell me after you meet with him, I still want to, it's okay. I understand. Again, I'm thinking,
yeah, you're setting yourself up in a way, right?
But I'm like, I need her to know she's more important than truth in that moment. And she ended up breaking it off with him. She ended up deciding to go to ministry school. Her life completely changed around. I mean, she is just on fire for God now. And it was a crossroads in my life going, I can either show her that faith or my beliefs are more important than she is, or I can show her that she is so important, I'm willing to walk with her when she's not aligned.
That's such a good
And as soon as I did, she, on her own, found truth.
Right.
And I think that's a big part, like to your original question, like practically, men are just not present with their kids.
No.
And we want to be right. So many times, I mean, especially for men, we struggle with being told we're wrong. We struggle with, especially when we know someone's wrong.
Right.
And when they're younger and they should be listening. Like, I can go down the list of all the reasons why I can justify that, but it's like, but what are you more wanting? Mm-hmm. Do you want to be right in this situation, or do you want your kid to know that you're present, you're a father?
Yeah.
Because what they need to know more than anything is that you are going to represent the father in their life regardless of their decisions.
Yeah.
Because then you're safe and they'll always be able to come to you regardless of what happens in their lives.
Man, this is so good. As you're saying this, it stirs up so much because I've been in ministry for 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, my kids grew up, you know, at my feet, you know.
Right.
So,
Yep.
and I was a good dad, you know, I was
Yeah.
a good dad, you know, I was a good dad. And yet I was so often the dad who wanted to be right, to hold up the moral standard, to say, this is what we're going to do as a family. This
Yep.
is, you know, and I would draw lines where they didn't need to be drawn. You know, I would draw some lines. So it's like going, I should have gone in there and said, let's explore this together.
Right.
So I know there's guys out there who are older and their kids are, you know, teens or older, and they're starting to think, man, I've blown it.
No,
But it's never too late.
never too late.
So what would you say to a guy who's 48, 50, 55 years old, 60 years old, and he's recognizing that he could have done better, and he's starting to see, you know, his kids aren't, you know, they're not as connected. What can he do in a very practical way?
It depends on what we're looking for the outcome. Like you said, we're going to someplace.
Right.
If he's wanting to reconnect that relationship with his kids,
Yeah.
honest vulnerability is the most important thing. Just invite them to a conversation and say, hey, something's been on my heart for a long time. I just want to be real. The thing we have to guard when we go into those situations is, I'm going to come with a flag of truce saying, hey, I want to tell you I was wrong. That person may say, you're right. You did so much that they may attack you in that
That's
moment.
right.
That's when we have to decide, why did we come? Were we just doing it so we could feel better, or were we really trying to have the outcome of resolution and restoration in the relationship? Because at that point, I don't care how much you attack me. I'm really sorry. Being vulnerable and just saying, I was wrong.
Yeah.
I knew why I was doing it. I'm not going to turn away from my truth. Like I tell my kids, I know why I'm doing these things, but I was wrong in doing them. And I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And how did that affect you? Not just saying, I'm sorry, are we good? No. How did that affect you? What would you have preferred I do? I've really tried to put it back on my kids because I want them to learn how to do this with their kids and their spouse. And it's like, what could I have done that would have actually helped us in that moment where you would have understand more of what I was trying to say, and I could have maybe understood what you were trying to say.
Yeah.
Like
So good.
really talking with them. That's hard for people.
It's very difficult because, as you know, when you said that, what's your purpose here? You know, is it that you just finally get it off your chest, you become vulnerable dad, or is it that you really want them to know, hey, this is more important than anything?
Right. Yeah, because if my guilt is making me act so that I don't feel guilty, I'm going to lose.
Yeah.
Because all I'm going to do is I'm coming back into the situation hoping that they're just going to finally say, you know what, you were right, Dad, because I said I was sorry. No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But if my conviction is, I want to truly be reconnected to you because I did some things that weren't right in these circumstances, I don't care what your response is to me. I'm still pursuing something.
Yeah.
And
That's
that,
so
I mean,
good.
men need to really learn how to just be real, be vulnerable, talk. And there's so many good books out there and resources. The challenge is we are such an information-based society, we haven't become as much of an application-based society.
Right.
Which is why I love things that are like, hey, here's a book with journaling and prompts and curriculum and courses. It's like, there's got to be something like, make me work for this. I don't want to, I've learned enough.
But I think that's, you know, and that's something that's at the core of a man is we want to work. We want to accomplish, we want to overcome, right? And so if you put us to a task,
exactly,
you know, like say curriculum, getting involved, you know, that can really be something that's how it gets into us.
Yeah.
You know?
And I would say accountability. So another thing I had thought about this when you first asked that question, accountability, true accountability.
Yeah.
One of my saddest things I've realized in just connecting with men over the years, probably the last 8 years specifically, because I've been very intentional about what I'm asking them, is asking men, who's your best friend? This may be a little controversial, but when people are like, oh, my wife's my best friend. No, she's not. She's your wife. She may be one of your best relationships you have, but don't categorize her as a friend because that's diminishing who she is in your life.
Yeah.
Who's your best friend? Who's the man? Because it needs to be a man. A man should not have a woman as a best friend.
Absolutely not.
Especially if he's married. But who's the man in your life that's your best friend? Like, I would die for you, you would die for me type of relationship.
Yeah.
Most men I know, I'd say probably if I were to say I've asked 100 men, 90% of them say they have one. I'm sorry, 10% of them say they have one. 90% say, well, I've got, but they can't name the person. They're like, well, I've got this guy and, well, there's because they don't have that comment. It's like, oh, this is my guy. Out of that 10%, one of them has two or more.
It's we talk a lot, and this is not new to us. This is something that you've heard it before, but there's three prototypical men you need in your life. You need that guy in your life who you aspire to be like,
yep.
right? You just look at him and I mean, he's a father figure, if you want to call it that, but a mentor,
yep.
I want to be like him. Then you have the guys who you're talking about. You're running with the guys who are iron sharpening iron. And then you have the guys you're pouring into.
Yep.
But when you get it down to best friends, that becomes really real.
And I think a best friend will at some point go around every aspect of those relationships, and so will you.
I think that's great. You are experiencing that
100%.
With somebody or somebody's.
Right.
Are you part of Dragon Slayers?
I don't officially have a Dragon Slayer. So back when Danny was writing the whole thing, he and I would talk a lot.
Yeah.
I've kind of created that in my life anyway.
Okay.
Side tangent on that. Ben Serpel, his son, just happened to be visiting Austin when I had my first 50th birthday. And we had my 50th, big bunch of people came out, you're a pastor, so everybody in the world's invited.
Yeah.
But I did a guys thing at the end of the night. And there were almost 50 guys that came to that. And one of the guys and Ben just happened to be in town, so he came. Somebody said, hey, Eddie's doing it. You say, yeah. And I'm like, of course Ben can come. I've known Ben for years. So Ben comes, and one of the guys randomly goes, hey, anybody got something they want to say about Eddie? It's his big birthday. How's he impacted you? It was an hour and 20 minutes of me crying because of just the impact that these men were. And I'm thinking, I didn't realize I'd had that impact.
Yeah.
And Ben called me after that and said, I live with Danny. This is Danny's world. I've never seen another person have it modeled. Like that impacted me so much because just the way he said it, it was like I got to see what Danny and these guys are talking about tangibly. So I've kind of got a Dragon Slayer group. I've actually called both Ben and Danny going, hey, this is how I operate with my guys. Any suggestions? Because the model that you have, I love, but I already have a different model. He's like, why would you change something if you're working? Because I have 5 men that it's like they are my best friend. I mean, it's uncommon.
Yeah.
I have 5 men. And when I go through something, and they know this, because I think accountability is held on the person wanting it, not the person asked for it. That's management. Mm-hmm. So when something happens in my life, there's a group text with those guys, and it's called My Men.
Yeah.
And hey guys, this is what's going on. This is what I'm experiencing. This is what I'm feeling. And I loved it. I just had a situation happen 3 weeks ago. Kind of talked about it a little. I reached out to my guys. I'm like, I'm not doing good. I'm like, I know the truth, but I'm struggling with me as a father. I'm struggling with some just things. And one guy didn't reply. He kind of put a heart on it. And I know he's busy. A lot of times that means I'm praying for you. I kind of know 2 of the guys replied with really good, encouraging things. Mm-hmm. One guy was like, hey, we should get together and talk. Got some thoughts. Just remember who you are. Remember what you've told all of us at one point. Yeah. And one guy called me out and kind of kicked my butt on that text. And I'm like, I don't appreciate that more, but I'm thankful that I have men that are willing to do that.
That's so good.
Because he didn't just come to gird me up. He came to be like, take that nasty stuff off because you're wearing the wrong armor.
Man. So wrapping up here, the thing about manhood that I'm taking away from this is true manhood is being honest with yourself, being vulnerable.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Being intentional and surrounding yourself, investing in other men, because you need other men. You can't do this alone.
No.
Just getting together with you, and I haven't seen you in a while, but I mean, I'm always inspired by you and hearing what you're doing. Especially how much similarity we're having, but it's just such a important message, and you're living it and you're carrying it, and guys, if you need help, reach out to us.
Yes.
You can reach out to us, email, comment to me. I'll hook you up with Eddie. Eddie's a prolific author. He's doing so much. We're going to do another episode and kind of dig into that.
Yeah.
But, we believe in you.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing. I'd like for you to end this just speaking to the guys.
Yeah, definitely. If you're hearing this, you've got purpose. You've got a call on your life. You've been designed for something. There's nothing that actually isn't possible for you to achieve. There's nothing that is standing in your way that you cannot overcome. You are so amazing and so influential in so many ways. And you have everything you need to be exactly who you've been called to be.
Come on, that's so great. Guys, go out and make the next third your best third. Do me a favor, share this with people, like, subscribe if you haven't, comment. It all helps get this message, our messages, out to more and more guys.
Yeah.
See you next time.